My name is Dr. O'Toddle, and I did a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Black version. This was actually the second video I ever made for my channel, but I wasn't happy with it and ended up taking it down. Since then, I've re-recorded the audio because it used to sound like this.
My name is Dr. O'Toddle, and I'm known throughout the world for not being a doctor.
And the kick is no good!
Yeah, won't be doing that again. And after making some edits and fixing the audio, I finally felt ready to repost it. If you'd like to see the rules that I followed for my challenge, press pause here. I would also like to note that I use rare candies because I think we can all agree grinding sucks.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa!
That's too damn bad!
The Unova region introduced 156 new Pokemon, including my personal favorite, Zorua. What's your favorite Pokemon? Let me know in the comment section below. Well, unless it's Trubbish, then keep that to yourself.
Boo! You stink!
This game holds a very special place in my heart. It's actually the first Pokemon game I fully completed, so I was really excited to get another playthrough in after all these years. So I hope you enjoy the video, because I really enjoyed making it, and get ready as our journey into the Unova region begins. In Unova, you get the choice between Tepig, Oshawott, and Snivy. I pick Tepig and nickname her Gippet. Then Bianca picks Snivy and Cheren picks Oshawott, and I get challenged to a battle by both of them. But they're no match for Gippet. So after trashing both them and my room, I get my first encounter Patrat. She's nicknamed Tartap, and me and Cheren then attend our first cult meeting in Accumula Town. That's where I encounter N, and he challenges me to a Pokemon battle, which wasn't too difficult. He uses his Purloin, and I send down Gippet. And even though she's underleveled, she still gets the KO with a few tackles while tanking a couple of scratches, beating N for the first time. After beating N's Purloin, on Route 2, I catch one of my own and name her Noilrup, but before I can get to Striaton City, I have a battle with Bianca. And after I beat her up, I go to the Dream Yard where I get a grass monkey I nickname Eagasnap. Then it's off to the trainer school to teach Cheren a lesson. He sends out his Oshawott, and I start off with Eagasnap, who hits with super effective Vine Whips, defeating his Oshawott easily. That then causes him to send out his Purloin, which is defeated by Tartap with a few tackles. Next, I head to the Striaton City Gym, where the first gym leader is determined by which starter Pokemon you picked. So because I got Tepig, I'm up against Cress and his Panpour, but I got Eagasnap exactly for this reason. My gym challenge starts as Cress sends out his Lillipup, and I send down Gippet. Lillipup goes for a workup and 2 decent bites, but Gippet hits back with a few embers, keeping Lillipup just out of potion range, getting the easy KO. So next, Cress sends out his Panpour, which I respond to by switching into Eagasnap, while Panpour goes for a workup. Eagasnap then proceeds to give his counterpart a Vine Whipping of his lifetime, seeing the win and earning us the first gym badge. But before being able to move on, I have to go to the Dream Yard with Bianca, and we encounter Team Plasma, who starts attacking a poor Muna.
Kicking? I want to do some kicking!
After beating them in a battle and scaring them off, we save the Muna and it reunites with its mother. Then, while exploring Route 3, Gippet evolves into a Pignite. And I run into Cheren again for another trainer battle. I beat him quickly, but Team Plasma runs past, interrupting us, followed by Bianca and a little girl. It turns out Team Plasma stole her Pokemon. But before I go and help her get hers back, I catch my next encounter, Blitzel, who I nickname Elstilk, but we'll call her Els for short. Cheren and I then meet up in Wellspring Cave where we team up against Team Plasma to get the little girl's Pokemon back. And while I was leaving the cave, I catch a Roggenrola who I nickname Allure. And thanks to the level cap being 20, Neilrup evolves into a Liepard, and Tartap evolves into a Watchog. Just in time for the second gym leader, Lenora. She uses normal type Pokemon like Herdier and Watchog, but the biggest worry is her stab boosted Retaliate Watchog uses after you beat her Herdier. But if you have a rock type like Allure, it's no issue. The battle starts as Lenora sends out her Herdier, and I send out Gippet. Gippet then gets the easy KO with a few arm thrusts, forcing Lenora to send out her Watchog. So on a stab boosted Retaliate, I switch into Allure who tanks it, and with a few mud slaps and rock blasts, she gets the KO, winning us the second gym badge. On my way out of the gym, I encounter Team Plasma yet again, stealing a Dragon Skull from the museum. And while I was on my way to get it back in Pinwheel Forest, I catch a Sawaddle that I nickname Eldawes. I then finally encounter the Plasma Grunt with the Dragon Skull and get it back from him. But then Gorm, one of the 7 sages, shows up and tries to attack me, but I'm saved by Burke and Lenora. I then return the Dragon Skull to Lenora and make my way to Castelia City to challenge Berg, the 3rd gym leader. When I get there, I get a Leaf Stone from a scientist and evolve Eagasnap into a Simisage. Then it's off to challenge Berg. He specializes in bug-type Pokemon, but seeing as Gippet evolved into Pignite, his bugs don't stand a chance. Berg starts off with his Whirlipede, and I send down Gippet. And after taking a Poison Tail, she gets the KO on Whirlipede with 2 Flame Charges. He then sends in his Dwebble, who attacks with 2 Rock Throws, but his Dwebble too falls to a couple of Flame Charges. And when his final Pokemon Libani comes in, Gibbet finishes the sweep with a 4-time effective Flame Charge, winning us the 3rd gym badge. Upon leaving the gym, I get a call from Bianca to meet her for a Pokemon battle. So I meet up with her at the gate of Route 4 and defeat her easily, sending her on her way. When I get access to Route 4, I catch a Sandile and nickname it Elidnas, and then I run into Charon again for another quick battle. I completely destroy him as Allure KOs both his P-Dub and Pansear, Eldawest defeats his Duat, and Gippet comes in last, cleaning up his Liepard, winning the battle. At Nimbasa City, Allure evolves into Boldore.
It's not just a boulder! It's a rock! A rock!
And shortly after, I run into N, who invites me onto the Ferris wheel with him. While on the Ferris wheel, he tells me not only is he working with Team Plasma, but that he's their king, and that their goal is to liberate all Pokemon because they believe humans are hurting them just by keeping them. And for a second, I start to question it. What if he's right? What if we've been convincing ourselves it's mutual, when really we're just in control? But then I remember the way my Pokemon look at me, not with fear, but with fire. They stand beside me because they want to, not because they have to, and I just know that N is wrong. And after beating in our first battle of convictions, he challenges me to stop him from achieving his goals and escapes with Team Plasma. But I have no time to dwell on it because the 4th gym leader, Elisa, is waiting. With N out of the way, Els evolves into a Zebstrika, and I get to challenge the 4th gym leader, Elisa. Elisa's team isn't exactly stacked, just 2 Emolgas and a Zebstrika, but if you're not ready for all the Volt switching, things can get out of hand pretty quickly. So when the battle begins, I lead with Allure, knowing she can take a hit and fire back. Sure enough, Elisa starts the battle off with a Volt Switch that hits hard and triggers Allure's held Citrus Berry. That brings in her second Emolga, who promptly gets deleted by a clean 3-hit Rock Blast. Elisa then brings out her first Emolga again, and just goes for another Volt Switch, but this time it brings out her ace Zebstrika, who takes good damage from a Rock Blast on entry. I then switch into Elidnas, who comes in on a Spark, which isn't effective due to her ground typing. With the electric nonsense shut down, Elidnas starts chipping away with Sand Tombs, stacking damage until Zebstrika gets healed with the Hyper Potion. But a few turns later, Elisa's ace is out, and the hardest part of the fight is over. All that's left is the original Emolga. So I switch into Els as she pushes Emolga into potion range. So Elisa uses a Hyper Potion, keeping it in battle. And after Els takes some damage and ends up paralyzed, I decide not to risk her. So Tartap tags in and cleans up with a pair of crunches, and just like that, the 4th gym badge is ours. After beating Elisa, I run into Bianca and her dad. He wants her to come home and give up on her journey, but she tells him she isn't leaving.
I'm not leaving.
He finally accepts it and leaves, letting Bianca continue her journey. As I then head out of Nimbasa City, I get another chance to embarrass Charon, as Gippet handles his Liepard, Eldawest takes out his Duat, Allure crushes his Pansear, and Els finishes off his Tranquil, winning the battle. While I'm still on Route 5, I catch a Minccino and nickname my new friend Oni, and Elidnas evolves into a Crocorock. Then Charon and I find Team Plasma hiding in the cold storage, and after beating them up, Clay shows up and arrests them for stealing Pokemon. But when I get to the gym, ghetsis, the leader of Team Plasma, is already there, and just like that, Clay lets them walk free of their crimes. So the only thing left for me to do was to challenge Clay and get my 5th gym badge. He's all about ground types, with Crocorock, Palpitoad, and his ace Excadrill. But this battle wasn't too difficult. In fact, Eegasnap made this very easy. As the battle began, Clay led with his Crocorock, and I started off with Eegasnap, who started the battle off with a strong Vine Whip, dealing over half damage to Crocorock. In retaliation, Crocorock used Swagger, confusing her, but Eegasnap was ready with the held Lumberry, instantly curing the confusion while keeping the attack boost. Eegasnap then followed up with another Vine Whip, knocking out Crocorock cleanly. Next, Clay sent in his Excadrill. Eegasnap took a solid hit from a Bulldoze but held strong, following up with a Leech Seed for some recovery. And over the next few turns with a combination of Leech Seed damage and repeated Vine Whips, it proves too much for Excadrill, and Eegasnap manages to bring down the Steel Mickey Mouse before things spiral out of control. With just one Pokemon left, Clay sends out his Palpitoad, so I switch into Eldegoss, whose Razor Leaf with a 4x effectiveness made short work of the Water Ground type, landing the final blow and sealing the victory. And with that the battle was over and the Quake badge was mine. On my way to Chargestone Cave, Bianca ran up and challenged me to a battle. It was over in seconds, and with that she left, and I was able to make my way to the cave. When I get there, I encounter Clay, who opens the cave up for me with his Krokorok, letting me enter. But as soon as I enter, I'm ambushed by the Shadow Triad, N's personal guard. They bring me to N, who tells me to defeat all members of Team Plasma in the cave. So I do, and before leaving, we get into our next battle, which Kippet solos, getting the KOs on his Boldore, Joltik, Plink, and Ferroseed, beating him yet again and letting me head to the next city. When I get there, I run into the 6th gym leader, Skyla. But before I get to challenge her, I need to head to the Celestial Tower and help her heal a Pokemon. And while I'm there, I catch a Litwick that I nicknamed Kittle. After that little detour, it's finally time to take on the next gym. Skyla and her flying types are up next. She has a Swoobat, Unpheasant, and a Swanna, but thanks to Elidnas and Els, this battle wasn't an issue at all. She sends out Swoobat, and I send out Elidnas, who takes it out instantly with a single crunch. She sends out her Swanna next. So I swap to Els, who absolutely fries it with a Spark. Unpheasant's her last hope, but Els stays in and cleans it up with a 2-hit KO. And just like that, I collect the 6th gym badge. I barely make it out of the gym before N shows up again. He starts talking about truth, ideals, and how I treat my Pokemon. But when he brings up the Light and Dark Stones, it's clear he's planning something, and it's up to me to stop him. But first I have to make it through Twist Mountain, and thanks to the new level cap, Gippet finally evolves into an Emboar. I also run into Cheren again, and honestly, it's not a contest. I beat him pretty easily. After that, I catch a Cubchoo and name it Ook, who immediately evolves into a Beartic. And then it's on to the 7th gym, where Bryson and his ice types are waiting for me. This battle was pretty easy. Gippet, now being an Emboar, sweeps his whole team without breaking a sweat, beating Vanillish, Beartic, and Cryogonal, securing the 7th gym badge. Outside of the gym, Bianca and Cheren show up, but before we can talk for long, the Shadow Triad appears. They deliver a message from N. He wants me to meet him at the top of Dragonspiral Tower. And on the way there, the team gets a couple of upgrades. Allure evolves into a Gigalith, and thanks to a maxed out friendship, Eldegoss evolves into a Leavanny. When I get to the top of the Dragonspiral Tower, that's when N awakens Zekrom, the legendary dragon. His intentions are clear. He wants to use Zekrom's power to change the world and separate humans and Pokemon. And with Zekrom by his side, he's got the strength to make it happen. After that, N heads off to the Pokemon League. But I need to find the Lightstone and awaken Reshiram so I can take on Zekrom. So I make my way to Relic Castle, but unfortunately it's a dead end. So before heading to Opelucid City, I stop by Nacrene City to meet with Lenora, who just happens to have the Lightstone in her museum. And now that I've got the Lightstone, it's time to head to Opelucid City and challenge the final gym. But on my way there, I run into Bianca and she challenges me to our last battle. Bianca leads with Stoutland and I send out Gippet. Gippet starts chipping away with Arm Thrust while Stoutland sets up with Workups. And after a bit of back and forth, Bianca uses both of her full restores, but before Gippet can get the KO, Stoutland uses Roar and brings in Allure, who gets the KO the next turn with a Rock Slide. Her superior is sent in next, so I switch into Ook, who takes too much damage from a Leaf Blade, so after going for an Icicle Crash, I switch into Gippet, who gets the second KO of the battle with a few Heat Crashes. When Bianca sends out her Simipour, I send out Els, who gets the easy 2-hit KO with a couple of Sparks. For her last Pokemon Musharna, I switch into Elidnas, who gets the KO with a couple of Crunches after fighting off some sleep, winning us the battle. And because she leveled up, she evolves into a Crocodile. As I finally arrive in Opelucid City, I'm met by Alder, and we listen to ghetsis tell everybody about how N and Zekrom are going to create a new world based on his ideals. And after they leave, Alder introduces me to Drayden, the 8th and final gym leader. I follow Drayden to his house where he tells me about Unova's legends, and how Reshiram and Zekrom were once a single dragon, but were split into two when two brothers, one chasing the truth and the other his own ideals, couldn't agree. And now that Zekrom has chosen N, I need to reawaken Reshiram to stop him. But before I can battle N again, I have to take on Drayden, and for some extra firepower, Kittle evolves into a Lampent and then into a Chandelure thanks to a Dusk Stone. Now when I finally get to Drayden, he has a team of Fracture, Druddigon, and Haxorus. which is usually pretty scary, but thanks to Ook, she handles all 3 of them without breaking a sweat. An Icicle Crash took out each of them one by one, winning the battle quick and clean and earning us the final gym badge. Before I get to take on the Elite Four, I run into Cheren and Bianca one last time. Cheren wants another battle to make sure I'm ready for what lies ahead, and our battle was over quickly just like the rest. Els gets the KO on both his Unpheasant and Samurai, while Gibbet gets the KO on his Lipard, and Allure finishes the battle, KOing his Semiseer. Then Cheren and Bianca wish me good luck and say goodbye, leaving me all alone to take on the Pokemon League. Before I take on the League, I make a little detour and get an Archon, which evolves into an Archeops. His nickname is Necra, and having him is very important, seeing as he's my only flying type. To start my Elite Four challenge, I chose to face off against Shauntal first. She's the Ghost type specialist, and her team's full of tricky threats that can cripple you if you're not careful. Her Cofagrigus loves to lead with Will-O-Wisp, and her Chandelure hits like a truck with one of the highest special attacks in the game. Between status moves and immunities, one wrong move can lead to a wipe. Shauntal leads with Cofagrigus, and I send out Necra. He opens up with a fly, dodging a Shadow Ball. Then Necra lands the hit, activating Cofagrigus' ability Mummy, replacing Necra's own Defeatist. Defeatist basically cripples Necra when he goes half HP, so this was a really good move. A held Rossberry brushes off a Will-O-Wisp, and one more fly finishes off Cofagrigus, and just like that, we're off to a clean start. Shauntal's second Pokemon is Jellicent, so I pivot into Els, who takes a Surf on Switch. From there, Els fires off a Volt Switch, which does good damage and brings in Eldewisp, and even though she missed the first Leaf Storm, thanks to a Citrus Berry, she hangs on and lets off a second one, getting the KO. Eldewisp then baits Chandelure to come in, so I switch into Elidnas on a Fire Blast that thankfully misses, because the second one doesn't and it almost takes out Elidnas, but thankfully she hangs on and gets the KO with a Foul Play. Chantel then sends out her final Pokemon, Golurk, so I switch into Gippet on a Brick Break, then it's a pivot into Necra on an Earthquake, and then a Fly that does more than half damage. Then Golurk does the rest and takes itself out with a Curse, winning us our first Elite Four battle. So next I make my way into Grimsley's chamber. His team hits hard and doesn't let up. He leads with Scrafty, which can sweep your team if you let it get a KO due to its ability Moxie. And with heavy hitters like Crocodile and Bisharp in the back, it doesn't make this an easy battle. But with a few smart plays and a lot of luck, we make it through deathless. So when the battle starts, his Scrafty comes in and I send out Gippet, who starts off with a critical hit Heat Crash, getting the one-hit KO, causing Grimsley to send in his Crocodile. And with Gippet at risk to an Earthquake, I switch in a Necra who comes in safely and gets good damage with the Fly. He then almost dies to a single Foul Play, scaring the shit out of me. Even with the help from a Citrus Berry, he's still under half HP, so that triggers his Defeatist ability, but I still keep him in and he manages to get the KO, taking out Crocodile. He sends out Bisharp next, so I go back into Gippet on a Night Slash. But the next turn, Bisharp hits her with the super effective Aerial Ace. That would have killed her if it was a crit, but she hangs on and fires back with a strong Heat Crash, nearly getting the KO. So I swap into Els on another Aerial Ace, which isn't very effective since she's an electric type, and she gets the KO the next turn with a Flame Charge. And with that, Grimsley's down to his final Pokemon, Lipard. So I make one last switch into Eldewisp, who shrugs off a Fake Out, and gets a one-hit KO with an X-Scissor, ending the battle and taking out the second member of the Elite Four. The third member, Caitlyn, focuses on Psychic-type Pokemon, but this was by far the easiest matchup. Her team is made up of slow, special attackers, and Eldewisp and Eldenas are great counters for it. With good strategy, I get through this battle completely riskless and deathless. So as the battle begins, Caitlyn sends out her lead Pokemon, Reuniclus, and I start out with Eldewisp, who rips a massive X-Scissor into Reuniclus, forcing Caitlyn to use her full Restore. So as she uses her turn healing, Eldewisp goes for a Swords Dance, gaining an attack boost, and securing the one-hit KO on the following turn. Her next Pokemon is Sigilyph, so on a resisted Ice Beam, I switch into Ook, who gets the one-hit KO with a super effective Icicle Crash, bringing out her Gothitelle. Her Gothitelle only uses Calm Mind as I switch into Elidnas, who gets the KO with a few super effective Foul Plays. She also gets the KO on Musharna after a little back and forth, beating Caitlyn and sending me to the final member of the Elite Four. Marshall is the Elite Four's fighting type specialist, and there's a reason why I left him for last. The only Pokemon I have that can hit his team for super effective damage is Nacrene, but he doesn't even resist any of Marshall's Pokemon's attacks. His defeatist ability also kicks in when he's below 50% HP, making him eventually useless. So unfortunately, my deathless run ends here, and I sadly need to make a sacrifice to move on to my final battle with N to save the world. My final Elite Four battle starts and Marshall sends out his throw, while I choose Nacrene. He's holding a flying gem to ensure he gets the one-hit KO on throw with a boosted fly, which successfully hits the next turn, getting the KO. Marshall then responds by sending in his Sock. So I have Nacrene use U-turn for some chip damage and a quick switch into L's. She gets hit by a Stone Edge on switching, but the next turn, she lets off a Volt Switch, switching back into Nacrene, who just barely survives a Stone Edge, surviving on just 4 HP, and thanks to him hanging on, he gets the KO the next turn with another fly. When Conkeldurr comes in, I switch back into L's, and she dodges an incoming Hammer Arm and gets a lucky critical hit on her Volt Switch into Eldoes, who also dodges a Hammer Arm. She then fires back with a Leaf Storm, getting the KO. That brings out Marshall's final Pokemon, Mienshao. Now none of my Pokemon can survive a one-on-one, so I don't have many options. So I pivot into Elidnas on a Rock Slide, and then I switch into Gippet on a high jump kick, hoping that Mienshao misses and gives us an opportunity to fire off a gem-boosted Heat Crash for the one-hit KO. But unfortunately, 2 high jump kicks connect, and my very first Pokemon, Gippet, dies right before my eyes. I can't believe I let that happen. I lost my first Pokemon. She was my best friend, and there's nothing I can do about it. The pain from this loss hurts more than you watching at home could ever imagine, and no amount of moo moo milk could ever heal. She was with me for my whole journey, and just like that, she's gone, and I'll never see her again. Gippet will forever be in my heart, and I'll forever miss her. But right now, I have a battle to finish and a world to save. And with tears running down my face, I switch into Elidnas, who lets off a gem-boosted Bulldoze and dodges an incoming high jump kick, winning the battle and avenging our friend, sending us towards N, our final challenge. After laying Gibbet to rest, I make my way to the Champions Room, where I watch as N defeats Alder and becomes the new champion of the Unova region. He then challenges me to a battle but suggests that we change locations. He says that this place isn't suitable for a battle between legendary dragons. Suddenly, the ground starts rumbling. Stones crack and dust starts to fill the air. And from beneath the Pokemon League, Team Plasma's castle rises from the ground, towering into the sky, and tells me he'll be waiting inside the castle, so after I check on Alder, I lead him with Cheren and go after N. When I get inside the castle, I'm stopped by the 7 sages. They try to prevent me from moving forward, but then the Unova gym leaders come to my aid and let me advance. And after picking up Kittle from the PC, I make my way to the throne room where I encounter N for the last time. He sits on his throne waiting for me. He tells me after he defeats me he's going through with his plan to liberate all Pokemon. He then summons Zekrom to his side. And as Zekrom bursts with energy, something in my bag responds to its presence. The Lightstone I had been carrying the whole time was Reshiram, lying dormant. And after it transformed back into its original form, I used the Master Ball to catch it and I nicknamed it Mar. I then swapped Mar out for Ook on my team and continued back to N in the center of the room, and then shouts that he'll create a future that he desires and our final battle begins. This is it, our final battle. N leads with Zekrom and I send out Mar. But he's not staying in due to an incoming Fusion Bolt. I switch straight into Elidnas, who's immune to electric type moves, and the next turn, Elidnas is free to strike back with a gem boosted Earthquake, getting the one-hit KO, and then sends in Vanillux, so I switch into Kittle on a Blizzard. The next turn, Vanillux wastes its turn setting up with a Hail, and with a Fire Gem boosted Flame Burst, Kittle gets the KO, causing Caracosta to come in next. So I go back into Elidnas to bait a Water type attack for a safe switch into Eldoes. and due to hail breaking it sturdy, the Leaf Storm finishes off Carracosta in one hit. His next Pokemon is his Klinklang, or that's what he wants me to think, but I know it's a Zoroark in disguise. So I switch into Kittle on an incoming flamethrower that does more damage than I expected. Then I go into Mar on a Night Slash and have him return fire with a Fusion Flare the next turn that forces N to use his full restore. But while he does that, I switch into Elidnas, who gets another KO with an Earthquake. The real Klinklang comes in, but Elidnas hits it with another Earthquake, getting her third KO of the battle. That then forces out N's final Pokemon, Archeops. So I switch into Els, who lands a Volt Switch that does solid damage and activates the Defeatist ability, cutting Archeops' power in half, which lets Necra survive the Stone Edge. I then go for a Rock Slide to get the KO, but I accidentally misclick and use Dragon's Breath instead. That nearly cost me Necra, but then Archeops used Stone Edge again and Necra dodged, allowing him to follow up with a Rock Slide the next turn, getting the KO and beating N. With N now defeated, he saw the flaws in his ideology and decided to set on for a new way of thinking. But before I can celebrate becoming the new Unova champion, Ghetsis barges in the room. He tells N how he used him and his abilities to create Team Plasma to take over the world. Liberating Pokemon was just a front, and now with N doing all the hard work for him, the only one standing in the way of Ghetsis and world domination is me and my team. So he attacks me and the final battle of my journey begins. He sends out his Cofagrigus, and I respond with Mar. Mar does more than half damage with the Fusion Flare, but his fate is sealed once Cofagrigus lands a Toxic. The following turn, Mar gets the KO, which makes Ghetsis send in his Bouffalante next. So I keep Mars in, and he lands 2 more Fusion Flares, getting 1 more KO before falling to poison damage. But unfortunately, I have no time to mourn. I send Els out to bait Seismitoad, and when that works, I switch into Eldegoss, who gets the one-hit KO with a 4-time effective Leaf Storm. Eldegoss then baits his ace, Hydreigon, but I anticipated this, and sadly, after ripping a super effective X-Scissor, Eldegoss sacrifices herself for a safe switch into Necra, who gets the KO with a Fly. Ghetsis sends in his Bisharp next, so I have Necra use U-turn for a switch into Kittle. And I wasn't thinking Bisharp was gonna go for a Stone Edge, but it did, and luckily, Kittle survived with just 23 HP. She then fires back with a Flame Burst the next turn, getting the one-hit KO, forcing out his final Pokemon, Electros. But to beat Electros, Kittle lets off one last Will-O-Wisp, which unfortunately misses, but while she sacrifices herself, her Flame Body ability kicks in, getting the burn anyways. And after switching back and forth between Necra and Elidnas, the burn damage adds up, and Necra gets the final KO, defeating Ghetsis, saving the world from his evil plans. After the battle, Alder and Charon take Ghetsis away, and I have my last conversation with N. He tells me he's going on a new journey to rediscover himself along with his Pokemon. And after I wish him good luck, he leaves with his Zekrom, and my journey finally ends as I become the champion of the Unova region. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. It was really fun to go back and clean this video up and make it a little bit better. I hope everybody that watched it enjoyed it. I also want to thank everybody who subscribed. We're about to hit 1,000 subscribers, and at the time that I released my last video, I only had 72. So I appreciate everybody who's along for the journey. I have 2 new videos that I'm planning on coming out very soon, and I'm also working on setting up some live streams. So keep tuning in to see what's going on. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.